Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to the episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up by 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. My name is David Quadrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial, and we are coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Harm. The sun is out. I'm on my webcam mic. I like that you guys point that out now. I appreciate that. But the sun is out. We're here. And I'll tell you, I'll be transparent. I know it's a work day. I got the hell out of the house. I took Bert for a walk. We just had a great time. We went to the park, threw his ball around. We had a really nice time. I enjoyed the sunshine because I haven't seen it for like a week.
Almost made you forget about how badly the Canucks played last night.
Well,
Right? You're 100% right. Last night was kind of brutal to watch. And yet you wake up today, it's bright and sunny outside, and all of a sudden you feel really good, and you don't feel as miserable as you did last night watching them get beat down, which, hey, that's going to happen, right? The Tampa Bay Lightning are probably the best team in the Eastern Conference, and the Canucks are 32nd by a mile. This is supposed to be the most hopeless part of the rebuild, where it's initial teardown. You don't have your Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg in the fold yet. So it's supposed to look like this, but it's still tough to watch at times. And yet you wake up today, and because it's nice outside, you feel a lot more optimistic about the future.
Well, 100%. And even like last night's game, I have a few thoughts on last night's game that I want to get to, but just the big one being that, yeah, the young defenseman looked shell-shocked, right? Like Tampa turned it on for a 5-10 minute stretch, and we saw the outcome, and we saw the young defenseman, well, I think it's fair to say, absolutely shell-shocked. Like, they have never seen puck movement like that. They have never seen Nikita Kucherov, most of them at least, cutting through the offensive zone and just backhand saucing like he's playing Sunday shinny. Like, Nikita Kucherov put on a show last night. I know the points weren't necessarily there for him, but, like...
They were. The points were there, too.
Well, yes, but not with how dominant. I don't think they reflect how dominant. Like in a 6-2 game, what did he finish with? Didn't he only have 2 points?
I thought he had 3, but
okay. Double check. 3 is more reflective. 3 is more reflective. I'll give you that. My point being is that he was absolutely dominant in that game. He looked like he wasn't really trying. It was 3 points. It was a goal and 2 assists. So excuse me. The points were there. He got 5 points against the Kraken in the the Lightning's last game, which was also a 6-2 win. But my point being, like, Nikita Kucherov was just looking so dominant, and the Canucks young defenseman, I think, had some trouble with it. Adam Foote calls the timeout, and they looked like they settled in. The bro line was great. I think it was, I know the scoreline's lopsided, but there's a stark difference between that loss and bad losses that we were talking about in December. In January, when we still didn't know if the Canucks were going to sell off veterans, and they were still in this, well, we might be retooling. We'll see what happens. Now we know they're in a rebuild. You get a loss like this where the scoreline's lopsided. The young defensemen look outmatched at times, but then they settle in a little bit after a timeout, and there's some positives, even with the young defenseman from last night. But you see Liam Ogren. You see what he's able to do. Another really strong game for the bro line. And all in all, like, I don't think anybody's waking up today saying like, what an awful game that was. I don't know. Like, it was, I know the scoreline wasn't necessarily close, but they were in that game for most of the night. And not to use we were right there, but they were in that game.
I think Kevin Lankinen made that first period look a lot closer than it should have.
That is true.
That was honestly one of my biggest takeaways. Is we talk a lot about how, for the young defensemen, even though they're making a lot of mistakes, they're so inexperienced that that's part of the development journey anyway, but we're also not going to panic or worry about those mistakes because it's just an impossible environment around them. And I think to some degree that has to apply to the goaltending as well, right? Where I was thinking about that game, especially the start, right? Lankinen allows 4 goals on his first 19 shots. So statistically, you would look at that and go, 790 save percentage. That's brutal. Your goalie needs to be a lot better. But you watch the game, and he probably faced double-digit grade A chances just on those first 19 shots. The Gonsalves grade A chance after Hronik and Buyum flubbed that reversal behind the net. Kucherov one-timer after Brandon Hagel whipped it cross seam east-west to the right circle. Darren Radish driving the net for a grade A chance, stopped, and the rebound save. And then the Brandon Hagel one, where Brandon Hagel's reaction was gold. Just that is a save of the year candidate, right? And then you even look at some of the goals that went past him, right? It's a Gensel tip, right? You can't really blame your goaltender for a tip in front of the goal. Yanni Gourde had a tip where Gourde was literally positioned below the goal line, and Pettersson actually had done a pretty good job of boxing him out of the play. But Gourde, with one hand on the stick, somehow gets a piece of the puck. It rockets down and it beats Lankinen. Like, you can't blame the goaltender for that. And then the Kucherov one goes in off Hronik's skate, right? So you look at 4 goals on 19 shots, again, sub 800 save percentage, and it looks awful in the goaltender. Yet when I watched that game, I couldn't really blame Kevin Lankinen for that.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think, hey, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling positive because the sun's out, but that was another positive takeaway I had, was that Kevin Lankinen, it was 3 games in a row with a 900 save percentage. And if we go by your math, which I really like, that's only 2 goals, really. Well, so it was another good performance for him.
To be clear, me bringing up the defensive environment, it's not to crap on the Canucks. It's to contextualize Lankinen's performance and almost be like, hey, he wasn't as bad as the numbers would have indicated. And I think it's, sure, there have been nights where he's let in goals that he should stop, but there have also been a lot of nights like this one where a lot of those goals he just kind of had no chance on.
For sure, 100%. I want to talk about the bro line, because Liam Ogren is the one that's really catching my eye, excuse me. His work in transition, like when they're transporting the puck up the ice, he knows what lane to fill, he knows where to go, he knows exactly when the puck's coming to him. There's legit chemistry being built between those 3. Now, I did have this thought, and I wonder if you agree with me. You hope that line's going to be the Canucks' like second, maybe first line next year, let's be honest, right? They're going to add a top winger, you would hope, at the draft, but you look at that line and what they're doing, you think that is like a really good third line on a good team. That is a solid third line. Like, Marco Rossi's your center, Brock Besser's your winger, Liam Ogren's your winger. That's a really good third line, the way that they're playing right now. You would love to have them on a third line if you were a contending team. But for the Canucks, you're excited about that. It could be your top line next year.
Yeah. Now, the Ogren goal, right? The takeaway, and Ray Ferraro did an excellent job of pointing this out on the broadcast. Ogren's on his back foot, essentially. Point is draped all over him, right? He's got so little time and space to get the shot off, so little leverage. And for Ogren to still get a quick release off with significant pop and to get it right above Vasilevsky's pad in that spot, which is an awkward spot for the goaltender, that goes to show just how dangerous Ogren's release can be from medium distances. With that being said, and as much as this line has built up a lot of chemistry, and we've talked them up for multiple reasons, right? Ogren's straight line speed, the counterattacking threat, the shot that he has, Rossi's intelligence, you're seeing his playmaking grow. Brock's looked a lot better and has been more involved in creating grade A chances. I do also want to pump the brakes a little bit, just as far as I don't want expectations to become higher than these players can maybe necessarily reach, where if you look at the underlying numbers, they've been
I don't want to
controlling they're having a pretty tough time actually controlling play. High danger chances for that trio are 17-8 in favor of the opposition in 81 minutes that they've played together. And this isn't to say, oh, they're not going to work as a trio. We watch the games, that's clearly making an impact, but they also are shooting nearly 20%. And we know what shooting percentage benders can do for our perception of how good a player or teams actually are. So
yes, I fall for it every single time.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? They're absolutely the Canucks' first line on paper right now, but you can't get ahead of yourself and say that's locked in Vancouver's line 1 for next season. Marco Rossi's going to be a 70-point player next year. Liam Ogren's going to score 25 goals. Brock's going to get back to scoring 30. I think I have to, as much as we discuss the positives, which are 100% real, you also have to provide the context of, hey, they are on a shooting percentage bender. And it reminds me a little bit of, remember the division winning year 23-24 when the lotto line was put together in January? It was that month, the last month when Elias Pettersson looked like himself. It was almost a goal per game at that time.
The beautiful New York road trip.
Exactly. Yeah, so Miller, Pettersson, and Besser were together, and we were all buzzing about, whoa, this line looks unstoppable. And it was a similar sort of thing where their underlying numbers weren't actually that great, but they were shooting nearly 20%. And then as soon as you got to February, combo stopped clicking for a few games, and then Rick Tocchet didn't want to go back to it. And even the few occasions later down the stretch when he did return to the lotto line configuration, they weren't able to click. My point is, like, we have to see this for a larger sample before we are ready to proclaim this as they're locked in as Vancouver's first line for next season, and they're going to be playing as a trio together for all of next year.
Marco Rossi over under 80 points next year.
Under.
Over. Write it down, Jacob. Write it down.
Do you actually want me to write that one down?
Write it down.
Do you actually want him to write?
Yeah, 80 points.
Oof. All right. Harm, we're either gonna this will either be a recurring joke all year, or Quads will take the biggest victory lap in 12 months.
If he's right, he should take the biggest victory lap ever.
Am I wrong often though? We've done a lot of these write it downs, and I'm often right. So
not always though. We'll see about this one.
Gotta get bold. Gotta get bold. Also, sorry about my dog barking in the background. Let's bring in. He's just excited for our next guest, Baggedmilk of Oilers Nation, who joins us courtesy of our friends over at Tim Hortons. If you feel something exciting in the air, that's because roll-up season is officially back. You can still play on the cup while supplies last, but don't forget to also play on the Tim's app, which means more chances to win just for doing what you're already doing, getting Tim's. There's a wide range of prizes to be won, from gift cards to for various brands to physical 5-burner barbecues. That's what I'm hoping to win. Roll-up season's only around until March 22nd. That's this weekend, folks. So don't wait until it's over to realize that you forgot to play. Head on down to Tim Hortons for more info. Check out timhortons.ca/rollup. Roll up to win only at Tim's. All right, here we go. Rajcraft in the chat said, how's that PD prediction? Is he referring to when I correctly said he's either getting under 60 points or over 80? Doing great. Anyway, just wanted to point that out. Baggedmilk joins us now. Wow, looking awfully shredded today, Bag.
Listen, I knew that I haven't been here for a while, so I just wanted to show you guys that I've been working out. I've been really focusing on my fitness, and I just wanted to let you guys know what I've been up to. And as you can see, I'm oily and shredded. And congratulations to all the Canucks Army viewers on YouTube that get to enjoy.
Hey, so could you share your share your training program for Matvei Michkov, maybe?
Yeah. So it's a lot of just eating off bricks of cheese, Harmon. Like, I just go into the store and I just take mouthfuls at a time. And then I just pop down, do quick 10 right there in the Safeway, pop right back up. It's working for me, So
fly out here. We drive over the border. We go get you extra cheese.
Buddy, I would bring home all the cheese wheels on earth. They would have to stop me at the border. You can't get that much cheese over, buddy.
Hey, Vasily Podkolzin, I want to start there. And I know we're going to get to Leon Draisaitl, obviously, but the workout photo here is making me think of Vasily Podkolzin and the Vasily Podkolzin that we've seen post-Olympic break. What's going on with Podkolzin? How's he been? Like, we love Podkolzin on this show, and Oilers fans seem really, really happy about that.
I just, you guys have to explain this to me at some point, because as I watch pods, I don't understand how he was given up on for a 4th-round pick. I don't get it. His work rate is excellent. His goal scoring, he just set career high this year, which is nice. Even last year when he had 8 goals and 16 points or 16 assists for 24 points, Edmonton fell in love with him very quickly, because even if he's not scoring points or goals, you never question his work on the ice. And I think that has been a godsend in a town like Edmonton, because we love our blue collar players. And we often hear stories about pods being first at the rink, last to leave. And this year he's getting some success scoring as well. So I just don't understand how Vancouver gave up on him, because Edmonton has fallen in love with this player, and it did not take a long time to happen.
Yeah, I think a few factors at play. Really, the main situation is Canucks had a glut of forwards towards the bottom end of their roster. And Podkolzin at that point, he had the work ethic, and I think he actually looked promising at times in a fourth line role, seemed to play a more sort of physical game, but the offense hadn't arrived yet. And while the work rate was there, the Canucks as an organization didn't seem to trust him fully defensively, right? It's only until he got to Edmonton that he got the opportunity to kill penalties. And even at 5-on-5, whether it was Boudreau, whether it was Talk, it didn't seem to be a lot of defensive trust there, even though Podkolzin, when he was drafted, was billed as a two-way winger. And I think the Canucks just did the roster math, realized that he wasn't going to make the team. And if he wasn't going to make the team and required waivers to get sent down, they felt that they had to get something for him.
It makes sense. Everything that just left your mouth makes sense to me, Harman, like from the logical side of it. But it's just seeing how he turned out in Edmonton. It's crazy to think that it was only a fourth round pick that landed him here because, man, we love this player here. And I want to thank the fine folks of Vancouver for sending him our way. I very much appreciate that.
And hey, don't forget the other part of the equation. The Canucks had to make room because Daniel Sprong, Denton Heinen, these big free agent signings that they then had to pay off of to get off the contracts. Just an absolute disaster class. But we've already talked this through. So, Bagged, I want to ask you about Leon Draisaitl. How are you taking the news? How are Oilers fans really like? What's the vibe check in Edmonton right now? Because I look like the Pacific is wide open. Thankfully, like the Pacific Division, can't remember the last time it was this bad. But like, I don't think a playoff spot is really in jeopardy. Like, what's the mood like with the news that Leon Draisaitl is out for the rest of the regular season?
Well, first of all, shout out to the Pacific Division for being awful this year. So that's been really helpful. I really like to appreciate the other teams for just being very mediocre and giving the Oilers a chance to win their first division since 1987. But when it comes to Leon Draisaitl specifically, like, how is that not just a complete gut punch when you find out that he's missing the rest of the regular season, right? So when he got hurt against Nashville, it was like a pretty nothing play. It was a clean hit. It was just a guy finishing his check, and I think he went into the boards awkwardly or whatever happened. I'm not going to try and guess from my couch. I don't want to get Darren Dreger mad at me. So I think that ultimately it was a massive blow for the Oilers, just in terms of, like, not only is he the second best player on the roster, but all the situations he plays in. You look at the power play as an example over the last two games. It hasn't been the same because Leon Draisaitl is not there. You can plug in Matt Savoy, and Pods has been there, and Roslovic has been there, and it's just not the same because they're not Leon Draisaitl. So the mood in Edmonton is that it's obviously disappointing. And when the coaching staff and the GM Stan Bowman says, oh yeah, no, we expect him back for the playoffs, like, none of us believe them either, because their injury timelines have been more or less suggestions than actual news. Like, if Chris Knobloch, if you hear him say somebody is out week to week, that person is probably gone for 2 months. So, like, there's some real concern in Edmonton that what they're saying is they're just lying. And that a lot of Oilers fans have a fear that this is going to be a Matthias Ekholm situation, where I don't expect anybody listening to this or watching this to know, but last year in Edmonton, the word down the stretch was, oh yeah, Ekholm's, like, he's banged up, but he's going to miss a couple of games in the first round. It'll be a couple of games. He'll be back by the end of the LA series. Well, he wasn't. And then he missed the Vegas series. And then he came back for game 5 against Dallas and looked like a shell of himself in the Stanley Cup final. So there's a lot of, like, almost PTSD from Oilers fans that this is the exact situation that's playing out with Chris Knobloch, or with Leon Draisaitl. And then when you factor in Chris Knobloch just has not told the truth about any of these injury timelines, it's got people feeling tense in Edmonton. Now, the other thing about Leon Draisaitl is he's known to play hurt a lot. So when I think of him missing the remaining 12 games of the year, like, how hurt is he? Because this guy does not play or does not miss games even when he is hurt. It's almost kind of his kink to play hurt. So I don't understand exactly what's going on. The Oilers are never going to tell us. But to answer your question specifically, Quad, yeah, it's a big problem in Edmonton, and everybody's concerned about it. When you lose your second best player, nobody can fill that spot. Everybody's got to pick up their socks a little bit. And you saw the score from last night. That just didn't happen. They were garbage.
There are a number of areas where the Oilers have fallen off this year. And even with the healthy Draisaitl, I don't think this is the same Edmonton team that made the Cup final the last couple of years. And one of the main reasons for that is the state of the blue line, where last year Jake Wallman was acquired and he was an instant difference maker. I'm a fan of his skating, his puck moving, on and on. And yet I've been watching him this year, and even looking at some of the defensive metrics, which are some of the worst in the NHL, he's been a disaster this year. And you tack that on with Darnell Nurse somehow taking another step back. And I know they brought Connor Murphy in to try and stabilize the D-corps, but I want to zero in on Walman there for a second, because I think when you go back to the cup run last year, Walman clicking, Klingberg clicking, Stetcher giving competent hockey, that was a massive reason why Edmonton made it as far as they did. What's gone wrong with Jake Walman, and does Edmonton have a blue line that you can actually win with right now?
Fascinating question, Harman, and I wish I had a good answer for you other than to say, man, we all are trying to figure out what's going on with Jake Walman. The only thing I can really guess is that there's no way he's close to healthy. He's had some injury problems this year that kept him out for stints. He had what they said originally, and again, this goes back to my Knoblauch point, where he's like, oh, no, Jake Walman's going to miss a week or so. He's got like a deep bruise or a bone bruise or whatever, and then go on a couple of weeks, and they're like, actually, it's a hairline fracture. He's going to be out a while. So I think that part of it is just he hasn't been healthy all season. But that's not an excuse. A lot of guys play banged up in the NHL, and you're 100% right, because he doesn't look the same at all. He's been playing really bad. And it's frustrating when you got a guy like Jake Walman that you need to do some heavy lifting for you, that you just can't trust to give regular minutes in defensive situations right now, because that's not the guy we need him to be. So I don't really have a great answer for you other than just to agree he's playing like shit. It's shocking to see the fall from Jake Walman. And the only thing I can come up with is that I don't think he's healthy. But even that's not a great excuse, because he's playing very, very poor. He's getting minutes. He needs to figure it out. To answer the other question, is this defensive group good enough to get the Oilers back to the Stanley Cup final? No, not currently as it is right now. Like, I mean, and that's not just the defense either. It's the forwards. Like, the Oilers in their own zone are a disaster. At the other end of the rink, they're fine. They're still scoring goals, and nobody's worried about the Oilers' offense. But like in the defensive zone, their coverage is so poor. And I don't know if that was just like a system change, and that's why they had to bring Paul Coffey back and hope he could fix things. But the defensive coverage, not just from the blue liners, but from the forwards, has been poor. The forwards rush the zone very, very quickly. They do that thing that drives me nuts, where their breakout is essentially go park yourself by the far blue line and hope for a Hail Mary. That drives me nuts. Like, there's no puck support. It's causing major giveaways in the defensive zone that wind up in the back of the net. And then the other glaring elephant in the room, because there are two in Edmonton, is the goaltending is disastrous. The Tristan Jarry trade, and here's one for the chat. That trade is going to go down on the Mount Rushmore of all-time bad trades for the Oilers, and we are talking about it, that happened 2 months ago? Like, it is stunning how bad Tristan Jarry has been. If anybody wants a little laugh, give us a couple of minutes over at Oilers Nation up on our socials. We're going to have a fun little Jarry thing going up here shortly. I think Canucks fans will get a kick out of, because we're making fun of the situation. But to answer your question,
sorry to interrupt you. Was that what Jay posted on his Instagram story yesterday?
That is what Jay posted on his Instagram story yesterday. So we're having some fun with it. Well, hilariously, our social guy Payton was at the game the other day and caught a stick from Tristan Jarry after warm-ups. So you can just kind of like use your imagination of where we're going to go with this, because needless to say, things have not gone our way. So Harm, I think like the answer to your question is, from the Oilers blue line inward, pick a guy. They're all a mess.
I have a few questions. I was going to ask you about Jarry. I want to park Jarry for a sec, because I think this one's more topical. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but you brought up Darnell Nurse there. We know about this 2-year timeline from Connor McDavid. Signs a 2-year contract. It's pretty clear they want to win a cup. They want to win a cup in these 2 years. If they don't get it done this year, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if they don't get it done this year, like, do you think there's going to be a sense of urgency from Stan Bowman to offload the Darnell Nurse contract just to give them some flexibility this offseason?
Yes, I do. Because around the deadline, there was a lot of rumblings that the Oilers were talking about to Toronto about a Nurse for Morgan Riley swap. And there would have been other pieces. Who knows how it shakes out. But there was a lot of like kind of smoke coming out around that. So yeah, I do think that they turn up the pressure. But the problem, and again, we'll throw another elephant in the room. He's got a full mill move. If Darnell Nurse decides that he doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere. Thanks, Ken Holland, for that. That's real cool of you. Super neat contract you signed there, Ken. Awesome of you. But the answer is, yeah, there's going to be a lot of pressure, because you talk about a guy, like, we can talk about Jake Walman having a rough season, and he has. But Darnell Nurse has been a hot mess. And this is a guy with a letter on his jersey that plays a lot of minutes. He's been a disaster. And they got to figure out a way. Is that a swap to Toronto where he's close to home and family and blah, blah, blah? Maybe. But at the same point, I will be stunned if that trade happens, because you also have to find somebody who wants to take it on at $9.25 million. That is not a small ticket. And what, the Oilers are going to retain 50% to get him out at a half of that, and then they have to go replace him with somebody else that costs that much, and your money is netting out even. Like, this situation is not good with the Nurse spot. You can see him getting snippy with the media now. You can see the media in Edmonton is kind of laying the bricks on him a little bit. So I'm fascinated to see how that one plays out over the course of the summer. But at the end of the day, you got to find a sucker. And right now, based on the Tristan Jarry trade, we are the sucker. So we need to find someone going the other way.
When I look at the Oilers' big picture situation, I can't help but be a doomer about it. And I want to lay out my case for you and let me know where you agree and where you disagree. Where I'm looking at it and going, okay, first of all, even though McDavid signed the 2-year extension, which is going to kick in next season, reality of the situation is if he decides he's going to leave, he's going to give the Oilers plenty of time so that they can trade him for something so similar to Quinn Hughes rather than let him go for nothing. So really, I think the McDavid story becomes another conversation at the end of next season when he's going to be poised to enter the final year of his deal. So if you're the Oilers, it's not that you have this playoff run and then 2 more years. It's you've got this year's playoff run and then next year's playoff run to try and show McDavid that, hey, we've got an opportunity to win. And that's where I'm really worried about the Oilers. Like, even before the Draisaitl injury, I think their blue line flaws are problematic. The goaltending is still a mess. You're stuck with Jarry. Like, Stuart Skinner was at least cheap and going to expire this summer. Jarry's 5.375 and has some term left. And I don't know if you're going to be able to move that contract. I look at, Savoy's been developing nicely and you got Ike Howard, but you don't have needle moving young players that are going to come in on ELCs that are going to transform either the forward group or the back end. I don't see a lot of assets to trade as far as like draft picks and prospects to go out and really add multiple difference makers. I look at the forward group and I think it's as top heavy as it's been. And when I look at Stan Bowman and management, the number of missteps that they've made, the Holloway and Broberg offer sheet, Mangiapane contract, Frederick contract, Jarry trade, like, I just don't have any confidence that they can solve this. And so my doomer case is kind of like I think they're screwed and that McDavid isn't going to win a Stanley Cup in Edmonton. And we're heading in a direction where unless the Oilers can somehow pull it together, he is going to leave. What do you make of that take?
I'm not worried about Connor, to be honest. I'm not worried about him leaving whatsoever, frankly. That said, parking that for a minute, everything else you said is right. I look at the Oilers offseason is going to be a massive one because you got guys like, I'm just doing some rough math off the top of my head here. You got 3, 5, 7, 8, about $10 million coming off the books just looking at UFAs. So they're going to have to be really tactful with what they do with that money. Because you're right, Harm. Like, you're not trading Tristan Jarry. Can you blast him off into the sun? Sure. Could you buy him out? Maybe, but that doesn't help your problem. They traded good assets to get rid of him. So I think that this summer is going to be a trying one. But like, I know everybody looks at Connor and is like, wow, they got the rest of this season in 2 years. I'm not worried about him. I think that once this extension wraps up, the cap is going to be so high that the Oilers are going to have powder dry for him. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is their youth, which is a massive problem. When you're in a contender window like Edmonton, wants to be, they're moving all their picks, they're moving prospects, and that's really causing bare cupboards. So I don't know how Stan Bowman's going to solve that. He has had some success. If there is a green check mark on his file. It's that he has gotten some useful players out of places like Europe as unsigned free agents. He's got a history of signing college free agents with some success. So he's going to have to lean into that to kind of rebuild some of the depth. Like there's a player like a Quinn Hudson as an example. Everybody knows his brother out in Montreal, but he's turned into a really effective AHL player for the Condors. And when he comes up to the Oilers, he's an effective fourth line player. Is that going to be a needle mover like you said? No, it's not. But I think that they're trying to rectify these issues by going overseas, signing the David Tomasheks to see if it works, to signing the Szymanskis, who's actually turned out to be a really strong prospect for the Oilers right now. He's playing in the NHL right now. He's going to have to do that because the draft picks aren't there. Other teams are not going to trade you their good players unless you're overpaying for them. So it's going to be a massive challenge. And all of that does go to Connor McDavid's extension. But at the end of the day, I'm not overly concerned about that. That said, ask me this again in a year, maybe we have a different conversation, right? This summer to me is the biggest one for the Oilers in a long, long time because their core players are all locked up. They will have some cap space to spend. But as we've seen, Trent Frederick, how you spend that matters a lot. And to this point, the last two free agencies for the Oilers have been a disaster. Victor Arvidsson is having a good year in Boston. Last year, he was a mess. Jeff Skinner isn't even playing in the NHL right now. Last year, he was a mess. Trent Frederick, Andrew Mangiapane, like these are big, big misses, and you can't keep doing these and expect to be successful. So ask me this question again in a year, Harm, and maybe I'll have a different answer for you. But right now, I'm not too concerned.
Interesting. Yeah, I think my other worry for them is their best players outside of McDavid and Draisaitl are also getting up there in age, right? Like Zach Hyman's going to be 34 years old next year. Nuge is going to be 33. Ekholm is already 35 right now. Wallman is 30 right now. And if any of those guys start to slip, knowing that there isn't a lot coming, like that just it makes, in my mind, Edmonton even more top heavy.
They're 100% top heavy. They need to find ways to, like, if you look at everybody's, like we talked about the defense, if you look at the other side of the ice, the depth scoring on the Oilers is not good enough. I think Matt Savoy's got more offense in him that he's shown so far. I think he's really turned it on since the Olympic break. And I've got high confidence in that player that he's going to be more than what he is today. He just turned 22 years old on January 1st. I think of Ike Howard. He's having a really solid season in the AHL right now. He's filling the net down there. Are they going to be difference makers? Maybe. But you're going to have to give them at bats, and you're going to have to also accept the mistakes that they make as young players in the National Hockey League. This is not a developmental league, and the Oilers have been guilty of doing that a lot in the past. And then last year they tried to overcorrect and end up as the oldest team in the NHL. It didn't work. So they've got a lot of lifting to do. How they find those players, though, Harm, I think that Bowman's going to have to get creative. He's going to have to go over to Europe. He's going to have to go to college, and he has to find some of that hit. Like, take swings, fine. Let them go if they don't work, okay. But you have to find some of that hit. It's crucial.
All right, give me a positive about the Oilers for this season. They're, like you just said, they might win the division for the first time since the late 80s. So, give me a positive about the Oilers. I feel like we've been talking a lot about bad stuff.
The positive for the Oilers is that the Pacific is so bad that they are still a point out of being in the Pacific Division lead. That's the positive right now. Despite all the problems with goaltending and the issues that the Oilers have had and the inconsistencies and the up and down and all that, they're still in the mix to hang a banner in the building for winning the division. If that's not a positive that you can take away from this weird mess we're in, how can you not look at that and be like, it could be worse? If ever there was a season for them to stumble through the first 75, 80% of the year, why not do it at a year when the Pacific Division is historically awful? So if there's a positive, let's make some lemonade out of these lemons. But that's got to be it, right? Another positive is our boy Pods, career high in offense for the kid. Love that. I like seeing where Matt Savoy is at, specifically coming out of the Olympic break. Slow start to the season, 100%, but he's in the right spots more often than not. He's starting to get some time on the PK. He's starting to get some more time at 5-on-5. He's a positive for me, but again, he's a project. So I think there are some positives to be found, even though I just spent the last 25 minutes complaining about how bad and annoying the Oilers are. There are positives. I would much rather be where we are at right now talking about these things like, oh, how do I get back to a third Stanley Cup final? Because I'll tell you, when we started Oilers Nation in 2007, I would have died to talk about this. So I think that it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, a lot of things are going wrong, but man, I've had a lot of fun over the last handful of years. And there's not many teams in the NHL that can say that they've had as much fun as we've had here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Last thing from me. This was from our chat as well. You mentioned the weak Pacific. Like, how do you feel about a first round matchup potentially with the Vegas Golden Knights?
I'd love it. Oilers have owned the Golden Knights. Like last year in the playoffs, again, different team, I get it. That wasn't close. That series was an absolute demolition. And I don't think, like, the Oilers just played and pumped Vegas last week. Like, they're not that good. Like, I'm watching, like, I don't pay attention to Vegas as much as I probably should, but I'm looking at the line combos before the game started. I'm like, when did they start playing Mitch Marner at center? Like, is this really their center depth? They are not that good. So of all the teams that I'm worried about in the first round, Vegas isn't it. To be honest, it would be more Anaheim because they are young. They don't know what's good. They don't know what's bad. They're out there flying 2 million miles an hour. And that is the kind of chaos series that a team can lose because they're going up against a team that doesn't really know any better. So to me, if I'm looking at one as a first round matchup, and again, obviously you need the standings to shake out that way, Anaheim would be more concerning for me than Vegas.
I agree with that. Bagged. Always a great time. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I was about to say enjoy the sunshine. Is it sunny over there right now?
No, it is like wet, rainy Vancouver here in Edmonton today. I feel like it was the perfect day to be on CC.
We had 2 weeks. We had literally just had like 2 weeks of straight rain. Well, I guess it was sunny on Saturday, but this whole week has been a disaster. Like monsoon, so much rain, sucked, hated it. Anyways, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I'm always happy to jump on and chat with Canucks fans.
Love it. There he is. Baggedmilk. Check his workout at OilersNation.com. All right. Just ahead of anyone else, I want to tell everybody about another sponsor of ours, our friends over at Greta. Great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line not to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. I always like talking to Baggedmilk. It's a good time.
He's insightful. He's funny. And I know it took a negative turn for a while there, but it's also because I teed him up for my Doomer Oilers takes, which I'd be worried if I was an Oilers fan about the McDavid situation for all the reasons I laid out, but maybe I'm a little bit too negative because he's also bang on about how much of a paper tiger Vegas looks like, where analytically, yeah, they look like a top 10 team offensively and defensively in terms of expected goal share. But we talk a lot about Edmonton's goaltending problems. Aiden Hill has an .869 save percentage, I think, this year. He's been awful. He's been unplayable. Vegas's goaltending is just as bad as Edmonton's right now. It just doesn't get as much media coverage because they're in a smaller market. And then I brought this up 2 weeks ago. I don't know how much it's changed, but as of a couple of weeks ago, Vegas only had 4 wins all season against teams in a playoff spot, right? And the dead last Vancouver Canucks had 8. So Vegas, even though they've got talent on paper and analytically they look good, there's just something that's been off about them all season long. And if you're an Oilers fan, there is still a scenario where you play a Vegas or an Edmonton in round 1, and then you're able to kind of get through. And then by the time you let's say are able to get through, get to Western Conference Final, maybe you're playing a team like Colorado or Dallas or Minnesota, but those teams are banged up because they had to go through the other Central Division League contenders and long, hard series. Those can take a physical toll. So there is still a path for Edmonton to go deep in the playoffs, but it's going to be on the back of the weakness of their division rather than their strength as a team.
Chat wants to talk about Caleb Malhotra. Let's do it. Let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of our friends over at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. Visit shoptoyota.ca at your local Pacific Toyota dealer during Red Tag Days from March through May. Okay, Harm. This is an interesting one. People want to know, if the Canucks dropped third, who do you take? I still think it's Keaton Verhoff, but I'm no draft expert or anything like that. But people are saying Caleb Malhotra, and then others are saying no, don't take Caleb Malhotra. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's an interesting debate. One I hope we don't have to have. I don't want the Canucks to drop to third.
I think the defenseman is going to be the best player available. I like Caleb Malhotra a lot as a prospect, right? And I am higher on him than I was, let's say, 2 or 3 months ago. I think there's a scenario where he ends up being the best center in this draft. The issue, though, is I don't think any of the centers in this draft profile as future first-line centers. And so Malhotra could project as, let's say, a 50 to 60 point two-way stud second line center. That's a really valuable piece. You look at how many teams are desperately looking for 2Cs in the NHL right now. It's a hard player to find, but that isn't the star forward to build your franchise around. And to me, I see defensemen that may not have elite number one upside, but are still going to be top pair difference makers with higher upside than a Malhotra or a Tynan Lawrence or a Viggo Bjork. And so with that in mind, it'd be Reed or Verhoff for me right now. And between the two, I lean towards Chase Reed right now. Again, I know most Canucks fans would prefer Verhoff, but I have question marks about, as Scott Wheeler pointed out, how slow he is when it comes to pivoting when defending the rush, pivoting to go back on defensive zone retrievals, his decision-making with the puck. I worry about the IQ there. Whereas I think Reed is a better skater. He's also not small, so you don't have to worry about the size. I think he's like Verhoff might have a higher like ceiling case if everything hits, but Reed I feel more confident about as he's for sure going to be a top pair guy, as sure as you can be about draft prospects. And so while I haven't made up my mind by any means, I'm going to closely monitor both guys down the stretch. If you ask me gun to my head today, who would I take third overall? I would lean towards Chase Reed. And I think that the consensus is also shifting a little bit too. Like Wheeler had Reed third and Verhoff fifth, and even Sam Cosentino over at Sportsnet, I believe he had Reed ahead of Verhoff. Like Verhoff has for a long time been the consensus best defenseman in this class, but I don't think it's a consensus he's the clear runaway anymore. I think Reed is firmly in that conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because I've seen this discourse a little bit, and mostly around like, oh, you have to draft for positional need. Ask all the draft experts. They always say, take best player available, take best player available. But the best player available doesn't mean the highest ranked player available. And I'm going to use an example, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen for the Canucks because this absolutely is the exception, not the rule. But think back to the 2024 draft where Celebrini was the clear number one and Artem Levshinov was the clear number two. Anaheim comes up, and when they drafted Beckett Seneca, like I remember watching that broadcast, everyone was stunned. It was silent. Beckett himself was shocked. So he was ranked going into that draft. I guess at times he fluctuated, but I want to say he was like as high as maybe 10th overall. But he had some rankings where he was in the teens. It was pretty clear that Celebrini, Levshinov were the 1-2, and then Ivan Demidov was probably the number 3, but teams were worried about the Russian factor, and Montreal obviously took him, and it worked out very well. But in the case of Seneca, the Ducks knew that it was the right fit. There were other forwards available that were ranked higher, but they said, hey, this is the right fit. We think he's going to step in and be a difference-making player in the NHL, and that is what he has been. When you're picking at 3, you don't have to pick the 3rd or 4th ranked player in the draft. Like if you don't want to take a swing like that at 1. You very rarely see the 1st or even 2nd pick in the draft not being the chalk picks, right? The guys who are ranked by everyone as number 1 and 2 in the draft. When you get to 3, if you are so confident and you trust that your scouts have done the right job or have done their job the right way, and you say, look, we think that this guy is the 3rd best player in the draft, but some other teams might have him ranked 5th or 6th, and prospect writers have him ranked 8th. If you're confident and you're willing to take that risk, make that pick. I'm not saying that that's going to happen for the Canucks. I'm not saying that they'll look at one of the other players and that, whether it's Malhotra or Tynan Lawrence or maybe another defenseman altogether, could be Reed, depending on where he and Verhoff rank. Just trust your scouts. And at number 3, I think there's a little more runway to take a swing on a guy that isn't necessarily considered to be a top 3 pick by everybody, as long as your scouts trust that he's a valuable pick at that position. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and Anaheim did that twice. They also had the 3rd overall pick in 2021, and that's where they jumped up to take Mason McTavish, who was, I think, originally projected to be in the 5 to 10 range. They reached a little to take him, and we'll see. The jury's out on McTavish. He hasn't actually had the best season, and recently has actually been a healthy scratch for a couple of games, but also the players taken after him, they're of varying quality, right? Like you got Luke Hughes at 4, Kent Johnson at 5, Edvinson at 6. He's probably, like, if you had a do-over, you'd probably take Edvinson in that spot. Eklund, Clark, Gunther. So, I mean, that one didn't exactly pan out. I think when you look at some of the players they passed on, most notably, I think Edvinson, Clark, and Gunther. But that's kind of the risk you take. I mean, the Hawks did the same thing when they took Kirby Dach 3rd overall in 2019, I believe. That didn't pan out, although some of the other players in that range, Bowen Byram and Alex Turcotte, didn't pan out either. So it can be a bit of a crapshoot. What I will say on the 2024, because you referenced that draft class specifically, I think the mistake the Hawks made is they should have taken Demidov the entire way. I remember that debate between Demidov and Levshunov, and I don't actually think, like, Levshunov, I think was a consensus to go sort of in that 2 to 4 range, but I don't think he was. I was
a little off there. Yeah. You're right, Harm. But I think it seemed like certain teams had him as the clear 2 just because they were worried. I mean, Levshunov was already in North America. Demidov wasn't. So I think some teams were very locked in on Levshunov for that reason. But you're right. I think there probably were certain teams that viewed them both as possibilities. Continue.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part for the Canucks is there just isn't once you get past McKenna and Stenberg, there isn't a Demidov that you can kind of take, and so we'll see, right? There's a lot of hockey still left to be played. Things can still change, but right now, again, to recap, gun to my head, I'm taking either Reed or Verhoff 3.
I don't want to have this conversation. I want the 1st overall pick personally. So we're not going to do
hot take.
Yeah, we're not going to do Tankathon.
No, we are. We need it for the science.
I'll just jump in with one more recent number 3 pick. Arizona took Logan Cooley at 3rd when Shane Wright was still on the board. And as you remember, I'm sure everyone remembers, Shane Wright pretty clearly going into that draft, at least until the later stages, was considered number 1. And there was still thought whether Montreal would take him number 1 over Slavkovsky. He falls all the way to 4 because Arizona locked in and they said, hey, Logan Cooley's our guy. He and Wright were both centers. And I think most people would have expected them to take Shane Wright. They went with Cooley. Absolutely the right choice. I think there's not a single scout or person in the NHL that would look back and say that they made a mistake taking the swing on Logan Cooley.
For sure. And
you just have to trust your scouts.
Right after that draft, I actually had Because even Slavkovsky at 1 wasn't a consent. That entire top of the order was just completely unpredictable. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. And even Cooley going third, like you mentioned, it was a bit of a risk to take him ahead of Wright, which is true. But I also spoke to scouting director of one team in the aftermath of that draft who was like, I had Cooley number 1 and was making the case that Cooley should have gone even higher than 3. And again, it just sucks because I don't think there's even a Cooley caliber center available in this draft class.
A lot of different opinions. You know what? It's funny. Everybody's so sure about their opinion. We got to start making these people write it down, Jacob. You see all the people in the chat who are so confident about all their picks? Go ahead. You all have to write it down. I want to see your track record.
You know what? You know, it would be really fun, and we have the infrastructure to do this through the Family Feud surveys. I think before the draft, we'll put it out to Canucks Convo listeners. We'll let them all like submit their picks. Might not be the full first round. Maybe we'll just do the top 10 or top 16, like teams that missed the playoffs. We'll do like a little mock draft amongst listeners, and I want to see what everyone does. And I don't know, maybe we'll come up with a way to give a prize to whoever has the most accurate mock draft, because even the experts can't really mock drafts properly. It's such a crapshoot. And yeah, we'll have some fun with that closer to the actual draft quads. We'll make the listeners write it down for once.
Yeah, get everybody's personal information if you can too.
No, it'll be YouTube.
We'll mail you a prize. We'll mail you a prize. Put the key under the doormat at this time. All right. I don't have anything else about the draft really. I just really want the first overall pick for the Canucks. Hot take.
Let's play Tankathon.
Okay, you ready to do that? Let's do it. Tankathon, pull it up, Jacob.
Just need 1 second, but
or don't. It's okay. Don't bother.
No, we got it. Here we are. All right, and I noticed Tankathon's got the mock draft player rankings recently updated. I would imagine that's just based off of some of the recent rankings that have come out. Anyways, it's Friday, so this is our last Tankathon of the week. We've had 1 first overall pick for the Canucks so far this week. Again, the pure math would say we're due for another at this point. Is it today? Do we go into the weekend drafting first overall? No. Another third overall pick. Calgary holds at second. The Rangers jump up to first yet again. Yeah, this one's tough. Well, hopefully for the Rangers, it works out better than when they took Lafreniere at first overall.
All right. Good stuff. All right. I want to give one last draft take. I don't know if it's correct, so you tell me if I'm wrong, okay? There's a difference between picking for need and picking for what you don't need. Does that make sense? And what I mean by that, in 2015, was it 16? 2016, the Canucks were very clearly picking for need when they picked Olli Juolevi. Like, they went into it saying, like, Jim Benning's on the record saying, like, we needed a defenseman, so we drafted a defenseman. He said that. That is on the record, so you don't disagree with that part. We all agree about that they very clearly picked for need in that draft. But when we talk about the third overall pick and say, yeah, Caleb Malhotra might be the best center in this draft, but you laid it out pretty well that if he's going to top out as a second line center, they don't really need that. What they need is the game-breaking talent, and you have a better chance of hitting on that if you draft Chase Reed or Keaton Verhoff, even though you don't really need they're not drafting for need by taking a defenseman. All of their prospects are defensemen. In fact, it would be the opposite, that they're drafting for the opposite. You're
saying need too much. I agree with the Levy point.
I wanted to clip this for social, but now we got to do a lot of chopping up here, Quads. Concise. Well, let's go.
Let's see if it makes sense in the chat, because what I'm trying to say is that the Canucks drafted for need in 2015 when they took Olli Juolevi, right? And people are saying, don't take Keaton Verhoff or Chase Reed, because I think Caleb Malhotra is the best center in the draft and the third best player in the draft. It's fine if you think that, and maybe the Canucks think that too. But to your point of, if he's going to top out as a second line center, like, you don't really need that. You don't really need to go out and get that. Am I making any sense?
Well, kinda, but also if you had, let's say, 2 picks in the top 10, you would still look at the center ice position as you need more centers, right? Even though you've got Pettersson and Rossi and Coots, like this league values centers at a premium. You can never have enough of them. But you're right. Like the biggest need, the issue is what they need most is a game-breaking forward. At third overall, I don't see that player available, presuming McKenna and Stenberg go 1 and 2, which we think is the most likely scenario. But hey, maybe there's somehow the Canucks get lucky and it's like McKenna 1, Verhoff 2, because a team really believes in Verhoff's upside case, and then Stenberg falls to 3, right? Like, okay, maybe that's a scenario where that game-breaking forward does become available to you at 3. But if McKenna and Stenberg go 1 and 2, I don't see a game-breaking forward there. So whether it's the defenseman or a center like Malhotra, neither one of them is filling that quote-unquote need of a game-breaking forward. And then but you still need talent. You still need just accumulate as much talent as possible. And that's where it's, all right, take the best player available. And right now, subject to change, but right now that is more likely to be one of the defensemen rather than one of the centers.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't make a ton of sense, but people in the chat said they get what I was saying. They get what I was going for.
Your overall point where you're advocating for, I get it. And I agree with it.
All right. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by our friends at, you guessed it, Bet365. Tired of waiting for the game to end to get paid? Ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up by 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365, download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. All right. Let's see. What do we like? What did I take last night, Jacob? Was it the Blues? No.
I don't remember. Let's see. Did I write it down?
Probably won. It's okay. I probably won.
I did not write it down. I'm sorry.
I won.
Let's talk the games. I think I would remember what game it was if you bring it up.
I don't want to do that though.
Did you suddenly remember and you lost?
No, I'll scroll through the games.
Did you bet on Montreal, Detroit, maybe? Ottawa, New York, Columbus, New York Rangers.
Oh, I took the road Mammoth to beat the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Mammoth won 4-0.
Yeah. You would have gotten your Bet365 early payout when they went up 3-0.
Oh, very good, Jacob. There you go.
Good.
Yeah.
Whoever wins wildcard 1, by the way, or whoever wins the Pacific is likely playing wildcard 1, which is Utah. I think right now, if a playoff series happened, I would take both. I would take both Edmonton and Vegas to lose in round 1 to Utah.
Wow,
maybe a hot take, but
yeah. And Utah might end up with more points than that team that they're playing against too, right? Utah's at 78, and they already have more than Edmonton or Vegas. Anaheim tied with 78 points, and Utah with a plus 27 goal differential. Like, for all intents and purposes, on paper, regardless of what you think of the rosters, like to a casual hockey fan, they would probably view Utah as the favorites in that series.
Hey, Harm, why did you say Adin Hill was unplayable? You're talking about the whole season, not just last night, right?
The whole season, yeah.
Because last night, Adin Hill let in 3 goals on 3 shots in 8 minutes of play and got yanked, and then Akira Schmid stopped every puck he faced, and they lost 4-0.
Did he really let in 3 goals and 3 shots?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even see that. Wow.
Yeah. Also, while we're back on Vegas goaltending, I looked it up. The difference, the big difference between the two is goals against average, which again, there's reasons for that, but Vancouver's goaltending on the season and Vegas's very similar. Their save percentages are off by 0.01. I think it was 886 and 887 for team save percentages this season. And quality starts, if you care about that stat, very equal. I think it was 27-26. I haven't looked into some of the advanced stuff, goals saved above expect, but just on the surface level, pretty comparable goaltending between the two teams. And look where Vegas is and look where the Canucks are.
Well, I'm working on a goaltending story and I've looked at the goals saved above expected. because Vegas is by expected goals against defending very well, like under Bruce Cassidy, they don't give up a lot, whereas the Canucks are by far the worst team in the league when it comes up to surrendering quality scoring chances. That's way, like, Vegas' goaltending has been way worse than Vancouver's even. And I know Kevin Lankinen isn't having the best year, but this is where the issue with save percentage is it treats a breakaway the same as a point shot from long distance, right? They both count as one shot. There's no shot quality factoring. And that's where I think Vegas is in a unique boat with Ottawa, where sure, a team like Edmonton, it's okay. You can't get saves, but you also don't defend well in front of your goaltender. I think Ottawa and Vegas are in a unique situation where they're both top 10 defensive teams in terms of the chances they give up. But they also somehow, despite having a good defensive environment, their goalies can't make saves.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more frustrating.
And save percentage, like I think you can really only use save percentage when you have a big enough sample size, because your point is correct, Harm. Like if you're looking at save percentage over a 1 week span, yeah, maybe you give up a few more breakaways or odd man rushes, or your top defenseman was out for a game. Like that impacts save percentage in the short term. So when I see people talking about save percentage over the course of, hey, save percentage over an entire season, I think that has a little more pull than when you break it down into shorter periods of time for that exact reason. Not all shots are created equal.
This is a really good comment. This is from Ari45 in the chat, who said, could the Penguins with Skinner go further than Edmonton does in the playoffs? That would make a great story. That would make a great story.
It's possible. It kind of depends too on who they end up playing, right? And this is something with the East race. For a while, it seemed like the Islanders were third in the Metro, and it was going to be like Penguins versus Islanders round one. But now with their win last night, Columbus has jumped up to third. And this is where out of like Pittsburgh's chances against the Islanders a lot better than Pittsburgh's chances against the Blue Jackets. So it kind of depends on what opponent Pittsburgh gets in round one. But yeah, because of how weird the East is this year, it's plausible that that Pittsburgh could win a round.
All right. Anything else from either of you?
I think I'm good.
I am so excited for the weekend. So excited.
Have you actually made your bet yet?
Yeah. No.
We had a good fun segment talking about the league, but you haven't actually made your pick.
Calgary Flames, baby. Calgary are home. Not underdogs. It's even at -110 odds. Florida Panthers versus Calgary Flames. We're taking the Flames.
Let's go, Calgary Flames, hockey team.
Thank you. 11 points. 11 points between the Canucks and Flames now. I'm not sure if you saw that. 11 points between the Canucks and Flames in the NHL standings, with the Canucks loss that last night. So, yep. Looking at the Flames to widen that gap even more. Let's take the Calgary Flames money line at -110 odds. You can get that over at Bet365. But we'll close it out there, folks. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Woodrelli. Have a great weekend, folks. We'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us.